morning, Scott Flathouse here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to make a time-lapse video with the Canon R5. I am here in the Texas Hill Country in Ingram, Texas. We've got a beautiful sunrise developing and we're going to capture that in a time-lapse format on the Canon R5. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I've got the R5 set up on a tripod here and I'm going to turn it on. And if you're like me, most of the time you use this camera in photo mode. So to switch it over to video mode, you select the mode button and hit info. And that changes it to video. And we'll go to the menu button. And over here on the camera menu, on the menu 5, there's time-lapse movie. We're going to enable that. And then I'm going to set it up for a 5-second interval. And I've got 2002 shots here. Probably won't take that many frames, but that will result in the shooting for 2 hours, 46 minutes, and it'll have a minute-long time-lapse. But the sunrise is starting to develop here, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing started. I started the video just in time. We're getting some beautiful color in the sky. I've got the aperture set at f8, and I've got the 16 to 35 millimeter lens. I've got it racked all the way back to 16 millimeters to get as much of the sky as we can. We can just watch this countdown, go make a cup of coffee, and come back and enjoy the sunrise. I'm gonna come out here and check on things. I've got my coffee. We'll take a look and see what it's doing. We had some thunderstorms pass through last night, and it looks like we have some still going on this morning. So not as spectacular a sunrise as I would have expected, but we'll let it keep going and see what it does. So we'll take a look here and watch as it cycles through the frames. So the settings, I've got a fixed aperture at f8. It's using a shutter speed of 1/50th of a second, and the ISO is on auto. It looks like right now it's at 1600. I think when we started it was a lot darker and it was more like 6400. So as the day lightens up, it's going to adjust the ISO to get the exposure correctly for each frame. And the other thing to keep in mind here that's important is to have good battery life. So I've got the battery pack on the R5, and I didn't start with fully charged batteries. It looks like we have about half the battery life left, so I think we're going to be okay. Okay, so here we are checking in on our time lapse. The sunrise has been less than spectacular, but maybe we'll get something interesting. We'll check in on the numbers here. It looks like we're still at f8 and 1/50th of a second. The ISO is adjusted down to 500. And of the original 2000 frames, we've taken almost 1,000. So we'll just let it keep going and see what happens. Okay, the sun is up. The storms have passed for the most part. Let's check on our time lapse. Looks like we're about a little over 2/3 of the way done. And the shutter speed has now increased to 1/160th. Still at f8, and the ISO has dropped down to 100. So we'll let this go a little bit longer. Our battery life is almost depleted. We'll see how far we can get. I've stopped the time lapse. We can get a preview of what this looks like in the back of the camera view. Let me flip that around so we get a little bit better view. Okay, and I'm just going to press play and see what we've got. So we can see some movements in the clouds there. And what I'll do next is bring this into Adobe Premiere Pro and we can enhance it further. That's how you take a time lapse using the Canon R5. Okay, now that we have the time lapse, we've brought it into Adobe Premiere Pro, And I'm going to make some edits so we can enhance it. I've got the file here. I'm going to drag it over into the timeline and create a sequence. And let's play it and see what we've got. So we've got some movement in the clouds, and we should be able to enhance that. I think I even see a little bit of lightning in there, which is kind of cool. The foreground is dark just because the sky is so much lighter than the foreground, so we should be able to lighten that up some. As the sunrise progresses, then the foreground will lighten up as we get some more light into the scene. Alright, let's start with an adjustment layer. Go over here to New Item, Adjustment Layer. Click OK. We can just drag that right on top of the clip, and we'll extend it to the end of the clip, and we'll start with the foreground, and we'll just name this Foreground. Okay, and make sure it's highlighted over here, and we'll go up here to Effect Controls. And I want to limit the adjustments that we're doing to the foreground here. So we'll change the fit here. We'll just zoom out a little bit so that we can see what we're working with. We're going to create a mask. So over here under opacity, there's this pen tool. We could use the rectangle, but the horizon is a little bit irregular. So we'll just kind of go over here. We don't have to be terribly precise because we're going to feather this. And I'm just going to draw a mask around the foreground. And then this feathering, we'll just change it to maybe, I don't know, about 90 pixels, 100 pixels, somewhere in there. All right, and then we're going to go to Lumetri Color here, and just under the basic correction, we'll start out with some basic corrections here. So under the light, we're going to lighten it up, the exposure, maybe bring up the shadows. There, we're starting to see some detail in the foreground. Maybe warm it up slightly. Alright, so that looks pretty good. And that works for the start of the clip where it was really dark. But let's play it and see what happens as we progress here towards the end. That still looks pretty good. But obviously we get way overexposed here. So what I'm going to do is go back to the effect controls on this adjustment layer. And I'm on the opacity, we're going to create some keyframes here. So we're going to start it out at 100%. And then as we get towards the end, I'm going to drop it down to, I don't know, maybe 20%? 28%? But this looks pretty good. So it starts out at 100%. As the clip progresses, you can see the opacity drops until we get to 28%. Okay, I think the foreground looks okay. Let's work on the sky some. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to create a new adjustment layer. And we'll name this Sky. And we'll take the adjustment layer, we'll drop it on top. And extend it to the end of the clip. and then we'll create a mask for the sky. So same process. So we've got a mask here. Let's feather it some. There we go. And then go to the Lumetri color. And in this case, let's drop the exposure. Let's increase the contrast. Maybe I want this to look pretty dramatic, so we're gonna really work with the contrast to make that happen. And I think, let's see if we can get there with using these sliders. I think I may want to even go down here to the curves, and let's work with the curves some. Yeah, there we go. Alright, that's really added some drama in the sky there. One thing it does that I don't really like is when you really add a lot of contrast there, the blue really comes out in the sky. So let's go down here to the hue versus saturation. We can take the eyedropper and we can just pull the color, pull the blue out. Maybe not that much. All right. There was some red and orange here at the beginning. Let's see if we can juice that up a little bit. All right, and there we have the time lapse. Let me go ahead and export this, and I'll show you the finished product along with a couple of other time lapses that I've done.